Welcome back to Vagabrothers. In this video, we're exploring the cultural triangle of Sri Lanka, some of the oldest and most important sites in the country, and we're starting off with Sigiriya, the Lion Fortress, one of the most iconic places in Sri Lanka and the most likely to pop up in your Instagram feed.
Sigiriya is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of 8 here in Sri Lanka, but this quite literally towers above the rest. It's a 200-meter or 650-foot tall rock cropping that dominates the entire landscape, but at the top of it are mysterious ruins. No one is entirely sure why they were built.
So who built them? Why were they built, and why were they so important?
To find out, we're gonna climb to the top. Let's go. We still have a lot of stairs, but what an impressive structure. Also, there's a lot of warnings for animals, including wasps. All right, so now we are officially at the base of the rock fortress, but we're in quite a long line. That's, you know, one of the realities. At least we have monkeys to kind of distract us a little bit of monkey business. If you have a fear of heights, this may not be the excursion for you, but
Or claustrophobia, really.
or claustrophobia?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're almost at the top. You can see why they call it the Lion Fortress, because this is the lion gate. You have the 2 lion paws, and according to legend, or according to archaeologists, there used to be a lion's face on the top as well, but that's been eroded from the elements.
It's amazing, we just saw a group of extremely elderly ladies mobbing it up here barefoot. Badass. We made it. So hot. So high. But definitely worth it. This view is incredible. Made it.
An hour later, made it to the top. Now, let's talk about the different theories about this place. Number 1 is mythical. It's believed that it was the kingdom of Ravana, a very ancient king who captured Sita from India and got in a bunch of fights with a bunch of Indian gods in which he was eventually killed. Number 2 is that this was a monastery. There's definite evidence that monks did live here up to 1500 years ago.
But way more interesting and more fun story is that of King Kassapa. So he asked his father, who was the king, while he was a prince, I want to be king. Daddy said no, so King Kassapa killed his father by burying him alive in a wall. Some serious Edgar Allan Poe stuff right there. Then, fearing retribution from his brother, he fled to Sigiriya. He built this fortress. He brought 500 concubines, because when you're king, why have 5? Why have 1 when you can have 500? He brought 5,000 troops with him, held down the fort until his half-brother came, invaded, and conquered his army, leaving the king to commit suicide. A sad ending for a tragic yet very interesting story. And then last but not least, number 4, aliens.
Yeah, so there's that theory. It's just kind of a joke, but it is pretty incredible to see that there's basically 4 acres or 2 hectares of buildings here. They were abandoned around the 12th century. No one's really sure why. One theory is potentially mosquitoes and some sort of disease that killed off people. But the place was abandoned for almost 1,000 years until, like we said, it was discovered about 100 years ago by the British. And all these theories have still yet to be fully confirmed.
For me, the fact that we're like on this giant rock monolith in the middle of a completely flat plain, this rock just feels like it was just dropped right into the middle of this plain.
Whether it was a monastery or a kingdom or a place of myth, you can see how it could fit any of those places. And maybe it was really all of those places in one. I think it's interesting that like the king, he killed his father, he stayed here, and even though he had this peaceful spot, he was obviously racked by guilt. It was kind of like the story of Prince Hamlet. I mean, he committed the crime, he took power, but then he really couldn't get rid of his guilt. So apparently that's why he got these frescoes painted down below, which had 500 pictures of beautiful women. This was supposed to comfort him when he was feeling down and guilty for killing his dad, which he probably should have. So now we're gonna go back to the place where this king originally lived, the ancient city of Anuradhapura.
We've driven a few hours north to Anuradhapura, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that was the first capital of Sri Lanka. It plays a central role in the story of this island.
Sri Lanka was founded in the 5th century BC by Indo-Aryans from northern India, and according to legend, they were led by an exiled Indian prince who arrived here on the same day that the Buddha gained enlightenment. Anuradhapura grew into one of the most important cities of the ancient world and one of the longest continuously inhabited cities on Earth. And that golden age was sparked by a visitor with a very important message, the message of the Buddha.
This bell-shaped building is a stupa, known locally as a dagoba. But this dagoba is extremely important because it houses the remains of the Lord Buddha himself. That's because when the Buddha passed, his remains were divided into 8 parts and sent to kingdoms across Asia, including Sri Lanka. It has been quite an incredible day exploring the cultural legacy of Buddhism in Sri Lanka. And I don't know, man, I think that like I always had this image of what I thought this place would be like, but coming here, experiencing it for myself, and ending it here in Anuradhapura has just been such an eye-opening experience, especially watching the procession of worshippers coming in to the stupa and paying their respects to the Lord Buddha. Going further back, going to Sigiriya, which was way more touristy, an incredible site in its own right, but full of people from around the world. But then ending it here, where quite literally I didn't see one other foreigner this entire afternoon.
No, they're more like worshippers coming here. Like there are people here, but they're coming here to pay respect to the temples because they're such holy places and they're some of the holiest places on the island.
And if you do come to Sri Lanka, we highly recommend that you visit this city. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Right now we are in Kandy in Sri Lanka and we are heading to Nuwara Eliya on one of the world's most scenic train rides.
This train goes through the hill country, which is where they grow all the tea from Sri Lanka. It's supposed to be extremely beautiful and our train's about to board. Let's go.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the journey begins. It's gonna take us about 3.5 or 4 hours to climb from around 500 meters here in Kandy to nearly 1,800 meters in Nuwara Eliya. So we're gonna be climbing up higher into tea country, into the hill country. It's gonna be green, it's gonna be beautiful, it's gonna be twisty and turny, and it's gonna be an adventure.
getting farther into the highlands, and the scenery is just beautiful. There's just beautiful jungle hills, and during colonial times, the British converted these hills into some of the most productive and high-quality tea-growing regions in the world. This train was built to export the tea from the mountains to the coast, and to this day, Ceylon tea is still famous worldwide, although the train is now more for tourists and is a pretty good deal. I mean, an unreserved ticket in third class, which this is third class, is only 100 rupees, which is like 75 cents. And you can reserve your seats like these ones for $5. So it's a great deal. It takes about 4 hours. For now, all we gotta do is kick back, relax, and enjoy the view.
We've been on the train probably for about an hour now, and we're finally starting to get up into the countryside. The scenery's changing, the cities are getting a little more spaced out. Starting to see some big rolling hills. But the one thing that has remained constant through the entire journey is the noise. It's a loud, rickety-rackety train, but it's extremely scenic. And it's super cool.
Stopped here in the middle of the hills. It's super cool to see how many people have their like legs and arms sticking out the front of the train. Like we're here in the back, like that is the caboose, and so we get the whole view. When the train curves, you see like the entire length of the train, everyone hanging out. And it's really cool. I mean, like this definitely was created for business purposes to like just export tea, get it all around the world. But it's really cool to see how it's been basically become a tourist train, which is a great experience in itself.
Okay, well, we have arrived in Nuwara Eliya. Climbed well over 1,000 meters on this train ride. We're going in. Wow! After a super fun train ride, we have arrived to Nuwara Eliya, and oh my gosh, what a refreshing relief. The temperature is incredible, it's super pleasant, very lush, and we have a fun afternoon plan, so stick around. We have just arrived to our destination, Nuwara Eliya, also known as Little England, as you can tell, with the red post box and a full replica post office.
So to find out why there is a replica British village at the foot of Sri Lanka's largest mountain, we're gonna head just outside of town.
So you may be wondering why we're in such a palatial setup. That's because in the late 1800s, this was actually a governor's home. It was like a vacation home. And it was a social club. There was a golf course built. Then later on, it was converted into a hotel. But nowadays, it's the best place to come to sample the rich diversity of tea from Sri Lanka. Not to mention, pick out on a little bit of afternoon high tea. When you drink tea, flick that pinky out.
They do it right. We've had sweet, we've had savory, we've had these beautiful teas. We got an oolong tea, which is like a fermented tea. It's famous from this part of Sri Lanka. It's famous all around the world. We got a light and a dark black tea. Terry got the rose tea.
I got the rose and French vanilla tea, which I really like because it has a bit of floral and then also sweet, which is a really good combination. It's delicious.
Funny fact, Lipton, as in like Lipton's iced tea, was started right here. Lipton was a guy who in the 1800s started a tea plantation. I think he was from Glasgow originally. He came here and just started making tea. And yeah, tea is a huge industry. Now it employs 1 million people in Sri Lanka, and it accounts for like 4% of all the entire island is dedicated to making tea. That's a lot of tea. So again, cheers to tea.
Nuwara Eliya was made famous by tea. This is the tea region in Sri Lanka. It's the home of Ceylon tea. And so we've come to Pedro Estates, and we're going to learn a little bit more about tea culture and production here in central Sri Lanka.
Now we are at Pedro Estate, Nuwara Eliya, one of the prime properties under Haley's plantation, colonial plantation. It is situated around 6,800 feet above the mean sea level. So one of the best tea plantations in Sri Lanka. Here in Pedro Estate we have tea around 660 hectares. Per year we produce around 830,000 kilos. Actually we have some all teas which we call all seedlings. That was some teas were planted by the British planters. Still there are some fields that remaining in the seedlings. But now presently we are planting the VPT. VP means vegetative propagated, that is tonal teas. Now the teas what you see like carpets, that's a nice tea, that is VPTs. And can you see some teas there, the small pots like tea bushes somewhere far away? That is the seedling teas.
Well, it is super cool to come here and to see where tea comes from, especially having been in Taiwan and China, where the oolong teas from Sri Lanka, the ones that are grown on this estate, are highly prized. Obviously, it's difficult work to get the tea from the tree to your cup, and the people who are responsible for picking the tea are actually a number of women who are descendants from the original Tamil laborers that were brought here from southern India during British colonial times over 150 years ago. They are paid by weight, and each person gathers about 20 kilos of tea by hand every single day. So to learn how the process is done, we're going to meet up with a local guide who's going to show us how to pick Ceylon tea.
Now this is the ideal leaf. This is the way to pick, like 2 leaves and a bud. Sometimes we can go for like this picking also. See, 2 leaves and a bud, another leaf also. And this is the hard leaf. See, it's a dark green. This is normally we are not picking. It falling down and become fertilizer.
All right, so right now we are getting attired. We're going to be picking tea in the plantation.
Across. And the stick above the leaf only we have to pluck it.
Ah.
Four and a half kilogram fresh leaf become 1 kilo black tea.
Wow.
2.5 gram for 1 cup of tea.
Wow.
That we need minimum like 10 gram leaves.
I definitely would it would take me a very long time to get my daily quota. I think I'm saying, but I think it's also like the skill is knowing which ones you can pick, because right now every single one I'm looking at, I'm like,
But
yes,
when they
no.
started, the workers can't do that much fast.
Yeah.
But they get the experience. Sometimes some ladies can pluck more than 18 kilos.
Right.
20-25 kilos also they can pluck.
And this is a traditional job, right?
Traditional job.
How many generations of people?
Maybe 3-4 generation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like your mother and your mother before,
Yes,
sort
yes.
of thing? Wow.
We just popped inside the factory just to get a little bit better of an idea how tea is processed once it's picked. This is a huge factory. It's obviously been around for a while, but the machines still work, everything still functions, and it's really cool just to see how many different stages tea goes through before it ends up in your cup.
Well, it's been an excellent day exploring the highlands, the tea, the train, everything was really cool. What a funky place.
Beautiful views. Nuwara Eliya, like definitely the coolest, both temperature-wise and vibe-wise, in my opinion, place that we've been so far on the trip. But you know, taking the train from Kandy up through the rolling hills, then getting to try the tea and to understand where it comes from, and understand the process, and meet the people who are picking it and making it. Just a really, really cool experience overall, and definitely one of the highlights so far on the trip.